Abaddon, Apollyon, the king of the abyss. In Revelation, there's a plague of nightmare locusts, war imagery so surreal it feels like a fever dream. But then the text does something scarier than the monsters. It gives them a chain of command. They have a king, the angel of the abyss. In Hebrew, Abaddon. In Greek, Apollyon, destroyer. Here's the twist. The terror isn't random. It's organized. So the paradox becomes, if destruction has a king, is evil a creature or a system? Because once something is a system, it doesn't need rage. It just needs process. Beelzebub, the prince with a stolen name. Beelzebub starts as a rival god name in the Hebrew Bible linked to Ekron and shows up in the king's tradition. Later, in the New Testament world, that name becomes a title in accusations, the prince of demons. The creepy part is not the demon, it's the rebranding. A name shifts contexts, from local deity, insult, cosmic villain. So the paradox, when you defeat an enemy, do you destroy them? Or do you keep them alive by turning them into your devil? Sometimes the crown is made of language. Belial, the commander of the lot of darkness. In the Dead Sea Scrolls especially, the war scroll Belial isn't just a bad guy. He's the organizing principle of the opposing side. His lot, his spirits, the army of darkness. That's why Belial feels like a demon king, not because he swings a sword, but because he makes evil feel like belonging. And here's the twist. If people can be sorted into lots, then morality becomes tribal math. So the paradox is, do we choose the darkness or do we join it because it already feels like a team? Azazel, the wilderness king you can't put on trial. In Leviticus 16, on the Day of Atonement, 2 goats are selected, one for the Lord and one for Azazel. The second is sent into the wilderness. Azazel is terrifying because it lives on the border of meaning. Is it a place? A being? A symbol? The text doesn't slow down to explain because ritual doesn't argue, it moves. Here's the twist. This king doesn't attack you. You send your guilt to him. So the paradox becomes, if you can transfer sin away, did you heal the community or just relocate the problem into the wilderness where nobody has to look? Samael the accuser wearing an angel's badge. Samael shows up in Jewish tradition as a fierce figure. Accuser, destroyer, often linked with the angel of death. What makes Samael feel like a demon king is his job description. He doesn't need to tempt you with pleasure, he can tempt you with logic. He's the voice that says, technically, you deserve what's coming. The twist is brutal. The accuser can feel righteous. So the paradox is, what if the most dangerous evil isn't rebellion, but judgment without mercy? A crown made of rules. Leviathan chaos with scales. Leviathan isn't always a demon in the modern sense, but in ancient imagination, it's the ocean's nightmare, an untamable force. Isaiah describes Leviathan as a twisting serpent, a sea monster under divine judgment. Job gives it a terrifying grandeur, something humans can't domesticate. Leviathan is what happens when nature stops being scenery and becomes a rival power. The twist, you can't negotiate with the sea. So the paradox becomes, if the world contains a Leviathan, something too vast to control, how much of your order is real and how much is just luck? Angra Mainyu, the anti-king of the cosmos. In Zoroastrian tradition, Angra Mainyu is the destructive spirit, the adversary in a cosmic dualism. This is demon king energy at the highest scale, not a monster in a cave, but a worldview where reality itself is contested. The twist is existential. Evil here is not bad choices. It's a competing principle. So the paradox is, if evil is a fundamental force, do your good actions matter? Or are you just a soldier in a war you didn't start? Either way, you still have to choose a side. MOT, the king who wins by waiting. In the ancient Canaanite mythic world, Mot is tied to death and sterility, locked in struggle against Baal, with the land's fertility hanging in the balance. Mot doesn't need speed, he has time. He doesn't need persuasion, everything living eventually meets him. The twist. Mot is the villain who never panics because life always gets tired. So the paradox becomes, how do you fight an enemy that doesn't chase you because it knows you'll come to it? That's why Mott feels like a king. Inevitability wears a crown. Erlik Khan, the underworld, judge. In Turkic and Mongolian traditions, Erlik Khan is described as lord of the lower world and judge of the dead. This isn't a demon who jumps out from behind a tree. This is an underworld bureaucracy with a ruler. The twist is chillingly modern. The afterlife isn't chaos, it's administration. Your fate isn't decided by a random beast, it's decided by a king who keeps records. So the paradox becomes, is the underworld scary because it's torture or because it's order without appeal? A courtroom you can't leave. Mara, the king who doesn't need chains. In Buddhism, Mara is the lord of the senses, the tempter who tries to pull the Buddha away from awakening, appearing with fear, distraction, and illusion. Mara's power is subtle. He doesn't have to drag you to hell. He just has to keep you busy. The twist is the most uncomfortable one. Mara can look like your own thoughts. So the paradox becomes, if the prison is distraction and the guard is desire, who exactly are you fighting? A king who rules by making you forget you're captive,